So for more, it's a pleasure to welcome to studio Marc Schulman, author of The Tel Aviv Diary and columnist at Newsweek. Marc, thank you so much for being here. According to all reports, Zohran Mamdani is angry. He says these developments are an affront to democracy.
Oh, yes, a real affront. I'm sure he'll use this because it's, there are enough anti-Trump people in New York that it'll work well. The reality is he would never win more than 50% of the votes. So if Cuomo can get rid of all of the other opponents, in other words, if Adams pulls aside and the Republican pulls aside, then Cuomo, who's not exactly beloved, but there are probably enough anti-Mamdani votes that Mamdani would not be elected, which certainly Trump would like. It's interesting because for the good of the Republicans, it's probably good for Mamdani to win, because a far left person, they can scream about the Democrats, how crazy they are, et cetera, et cetera. But I think Trump still has a feeling for New York. It's his town. All his friends are real estate people there, and they're all against him. Mamdani, I'm talking about. So, and of course, the anti-Israel aspect of Mamdani is really very strong. And the Jewish community, the organized semi-Zionist community, let's put it that way, is very much against Mamdani. So I think Trump is going to maneuver behind the scenes, and Mamdani can scream and yell of all the anti-democratic things that Trump has done, and there are a whole long list of them, which I think we're going to discuss some of them. This is the least of them. They're manipulating elections in this sort of way goes all the way back to, politics 101. And so my guess is he's going to succeed in doing this because Adams doesn't have a chance. Why not take a plush job? The Republican will certainly move aside if Trump pushes them to. And then we'll see a race between Cuomo and Mamdani. It'll be interesting.
A Democrat Socialist, potentially mayor of New York, many would never have imagined. Talk to us about the best outcome for Jews across America of all the candidates right now.
It's Cuomo, clearly. I mean, like I said, Cuomo is not the greatest candidate on earth. I mean, the idea that someone who had to resign because of sexual allegations is running for being mayor, of course, we have a president. I mean, it's a little insane what's going on that level. But on the other hand, Mamdani, with his views about Israel, which cross into the anti-Semitic. I won't call him an anti-Semite, but it crosses into the anti-Semitic world. And for someone like that to become the mayor of the largest of the Jewish community outside of Israel with the most people, it's sad. That's all I can say. And, there are a lot of young Jews who are supporting him because they don't think Israel is a significant issue in terms of New York politics. But it is. Israel is very much intertwined in New York politics. I once ran the Israel Day Parade, and with Trump as one of my grand marshals, but it was done together with the city and with the mayor and everything else like that. And the idea that Mamdani would be involved in the Israel Day Parade, Salute to Israel Parade, I can't imagine that happening. So,
Mayor Eric Adams' campaign, to be clear, is denying these reports that he would take a role in the Trump administration. Of course, he says, don't believe the noise.
Deny until you accept. Come on. Why? If you're Eric Adams and you're polling, I don't know, it's polling about 18%, I think, or something like that. And so if you're going to add 18%, which would be an embarrassment, you can get a cush job as an ambassador, who knows where. What are you going to do?
It's difficult to take any politician at face value these days.
Really? They lie? Is it possible? No, come on.
That makes our life all the more interesting in this role. Marc, stay with us. There's much more to discuss in the United States. A landmark victory for Harvard University in its showdown with President Donald Trump. A federal judge says the president cannot terminate billions of dollars in grants awarded to the school. But this might not be the end of the fight, as our Michelle Kickie explains in this report.
A big legal win for Harvard after a judge says President Trump unlawfully blocked more than $2 billion in federal grants to the university. The school became a focus of the administration's campaign to use federal funding as leverage to force multi-front changes at U.S. universities. Back in April, the president accused Harvard of, quote, radical left ideologies, racial bias, and of not doing enough to combat anti-Semitism in the wake of heated campus protests related to the Israel-Hamas war. The judge wrote in her decision that, quote, Harvard was wrong to tolerate hateful behavior for as long as it did. But she added that fighting anti-Semitism was not the administration's true aim in this fight. The cuts left Harvard in a state of shock. Even though the university is the richest in America, it relies on federal grants for things like staff salaries, financial aid for students, and a bulk of the school's science and healthcare research programs. Harvard School of Public Health, which gets 46% of its budget from federal funding, lost more than $60 million for a tuberculosis research project.
A lot of that money is being used for life-saving research to advance, research in Alzheimer's, cancer. It's being put to good causes, and it's not like the advances that are being made from Harvard are insular. They're to help the general public.
Harvard's former president, who resigned in 2024 following those campus protests and a heated appearance at a Capitol Hill hearing, said in a rare statement that the American government is attacking higher education.
The truth here is that our government, the American government, is attacking higher ed and the university.
Harvard was the only university in the president's crosshairs to go to court. 3 other Ivy League universities, Columbia, Penn, and Brown, struck deals with Trump to preserve funding. But the battle might not be over just yet. The White House vowed to immediately challenge the decision, calling the judge a, quote, activist Obama-appointed judge. For now, those in favor of the university are celebrating.
But it made me happy to know that, the judicial system is sticking up for us and that they'll have our back, and they're always going to, fight for the truth and fight for an institution that also cares about the truth.
Marc Schulman still in studio. A win in the battle for Harvard University, but clearly it's not over yet from the Trump administration.
Absolutely not. It'll go all the way to the Supreme Court before it's decided. This is one of those classic cases of the ends justify the means. So, just last night I was interviewing Lauren Steinberg from the Jewish Federation, who's in charge of colleges, and she was telling me how much better it's gotten at all the universities because of what Trump has been doing. And so I'll have that on tomorrow, by the way. But in any case, she said how much better it's been getting. On the other hand, what Trump has been doing is patently illegal. So you got to look at it, how can you extend executive power to making decisions? He can't make those decisions. There's a whole process involved in how you can rescind funding to a university. He ignored all of that. It's a law. He ignores laws completely to accomplish things. Now, some of the things he accomplishes seem to be good, like trying to fight anti-Semitism, although he's using that against other things as well. On the other hand, if a president can do whatever he wants in every single area, then what's the difference between him and a dictator? And so there needs to be laws. Presidents have to follow laws. There are limits to presidential power. So it's really difficult, right? As a Jew, as someone who's concerned about an Israeli, concerned about what's going on in university campuses, as someone who personally had a bad experience at Columbia University, this is good. Let's push back. On the other hand, how we push back is really very important, because the other part of it is if you don't push back right, it'll all be gone the day Trump is gone. And so you need to think of ways of doing these things that will actually work and stay forever, or at least as long as possible. And executive actions of these kinds go against everything that American law stands for and the separation of powers that exists in the U.S. So this is another case. He's been pushed back. The judiciary has pushed him back. It'll now go to the appeals court. The appeals court will also side with Harvard, I would bet. But then it'll get to the Supreme Court. And anyone cannot get what the Supreme Court's going to do at this point. They like presidential power, but this may be a little bit too much. Most of them are Harvard graduates, but that's besides the point. Some are Yale.
While all of this plays out and this legal fighting could take months and months, if not years, what does it mean for Jewish students right now at these prestigious campuses? Well,
2 things. First of all, there has been changes that are made. Columbia, Harvard, all the top universities have taken action against anti-Semitism. There are none of the assemblies on the campus that we've seen previously, Palestinian assemblies and all these things that we saw on the Greens. That's not taking place this year. There's less pushback. When there's social media posts, people are acting very quickly. So things from what I understand, and I'm not there, but like I said, I had this conversation just last night, are much better on campuses right now. And that's good. It's good. It's much better. How it'll affect long-term? Look, we have long-term problems in terms of campuses. We've had long-term problems. We have long-term problems in terms of who's teaching Middle East studies. This has been going on for 20, 30 years, and no one has paid any attention until just now. I'm doing some work on a book, and I just came a New York Times article from 2001, how Jewish students in August were preparing to go back to campuses and fight the good fight on the campuses because things were bad on the campuses in 2001. I started an organization in 1975 to fight Arab propaganda on Israel on campuses all over the United States. So it's an old story that's just gotten a little worse over time. And last year, of course, it got particularly bad. And so let's hope we're past the worst thing, and let's hope the Trump administration's actions, however misdone and maybe misintentioned on some level, will have a positive impact over a period of time.
Here's hoping, and certainly appreciate your insights on what you are rightly calling the good fight. Marc Schulman, as always, appreciate you being here in studio. Thank you.